if we go back to here, right? Again, we are going to be using, and for those of you at home that are watching the video right now, you cannot see me pointing at the projector, and I always forget that. So what we just talked about were the 3 different font formats: PostScript, TrueType, and OpenType. Okay. So the fonts that we are going to be using, we have 2 programs that we are going to be using. Let's close this Illustrator document and then reopen it. So I get that dialog box. So if I open up my Logotype Study 1, which is so if you get here then and you see this dialog box, I created this file in Adobe CS3 a long time ago. I probably should update it, but it still works, so I have not updated it. So it still says Legacy Artboard, crop areas, say OK. The next thing you will be asked is missing fonts. So you can see here where the words that have the pink box behind it, those represent, so Universe, New York, Bauhaus, or as my sister in high school liked to call it, the Bauhaus. There was a band called Bauhaus that she called Bauhaus. You can see Bauhaus, Brody, Hudson, New York, Universe, etc. are missing. Okay. Well, why those are missing is currently they are not. Let's see if we should have at least Universe in here. Universe. Brody, Bauhaus, Bauhaus. Baskerville, Bauhaus 93. Okay. So Bauhaus 93 is not identical to this Bauhaus right there. Okay. But let's say if we wanted to say find fonts and Hudson, let's do this. Bauhaus bold. Let's find. Nope. Change. It's just going to change them all. Forget it. Just change. Just let them go. They're not going to load. We can then, let's say we want to use Bauhaus 93. Okay. Right here, this green dot. If I turn that dot off or deactivate, really? Okay. Expected error. Let's say right now, Bauhaus 93. If we go to our fonts palette here, because I've just turned it off, no, there it is. Because we got the errors first week here. Screw it. What's one that, where was that chalkboard one? Chalkboard. Let's see if we, fun times testing the new system on the fly in class, isn't it? Let's go Chalkboard. All right. So right now, Chalkboard, if we go to Illustrator, that should not be active right now. Because my demo is going great with this new system that they have set up. Here's what we're going to do. I know this will work. Let's say you're doing a country western album. and you need a font for a country western album. And you go there and you see Gringo Nights. Why not? That's offensive and appropriate for class, right? Gringo Nights it is. Yeah, yeah. I got to do something with the new, what they've got set up, because everything I've relied on for the past however many years. So, if we've downloaded Gringo Nights into our downloads folder, it is a true type font. So let's say we are working on a project and we want to say new set. For the band, the Gringo All-Stars. Why not, right? You got to go all the way if you're going to go at all, right? So what you can do then is, if I have this, and again, it'd be nice if I had my home folder up and running, but if I have Gringo Nights on the desktop, right, I theoretically should be able to bring Gringo Nights into the set, right? As well, let's say I found something in the system folder. Be sure, why not? And I also want to, come on. They have this all screwed up. I should be able to see that font library. Well, should be able to add it. Let's put it on the desktop. Futura font library. I should be able to, in the way they used to have it set up, was that I could just drag from the other font folders, which are no longer there, into my set. So again, stuff to talk about. So let's say now I have a set here. And every time I am then logged into this machine, in other words, on your projects, you should create a new set like that and drag the ones that you want, so you're not looking for them all over the place all the time. The thing is that when I load something like Gringo Nights into this set, Suitcase is going to look for it wherever it is. For instance, if you have put it on your thumb drive, it's going to go look back in your thumb drive for it. If you have it in your home folder, which apparently I don't know if we're supposed to have anymore, it would go looking for it. So if I then go into Illustrator and we go here, if Gringo Nights shows up, I'm going to just be like, what? So Gringo Nights is not in there, meaning it is not active. Okay. So how many of you have ever used Fontbook on a Mac? Okay. There is an application that comes with the Mac, Fontbook. Okay. It also is a font management program. So if you are using your Mac to manage your fonts, right, and don't have the money to spend on Suitcase, which you go to Academic Superstore, Suitcase is about 60 bucks, right? If you're going to be doing a lot of print work and a lot of design with a lot of different fonts, it's probably in your best interest to get Suitcase. If you're just going to be using a font here, a font there, you can go ahead and use Fontbook or what is it called on a PC? Font Manager?
Yeah, it's just a font.
Okay. So for instance, if you were on a Mac and you said you wanted to enable Gringo Nights, if you double clicked it, it would open it in Fontbook for you. And you would say install font, and it would show up in the other programs for you to use. Suitcase, I think, is the better program. So now if you've made a set like this and we can select both of those and activate permanently or temporarily. But now that we've activated it, you better damn well show up in Illustrator here. Gringo Nights. Something worked. I'm so stoked something worked. So we can select this, choose Gringo Nights, and then what I'm going to want you to do for your assignment is also tell me what typeface you used, because here's the thing. If and when it'll happen, if and when I say, what typeface did you use? And you say, I don't know. I'm going to look at you like you should know, so we can talk about it and we can work with it, okay? So again, what happens here in Suitcase, right? So when fonts are activated, like I just did, what is actually happening behind the scenes is this system or this computer then is making a copy of that font and storing it in your system folder, which has a fonts folder in the system. Okay, so basically what it's doing is wherever you grab this font from, it is then making a copy to put in your fonts folder. It relies on the original, right? Meaning if you have activated a font and you then don't have your thumb drive where it used to live or lived in general to activate, I don't know how it actually works, but it is going to try to get a hold of the original again to then activate and put into your system folder. Okay. So that the font can be active here in Illustrator. So here's what you're going to do in Illustrator. Let's talk about the Illustrator stuff here a little bit. Okay, but does that make, so far, does Suitcase kind of make sense to you guys? Right? So again, if you want to use fonts that you downloaded from the internet, go ahead and use those. How many of you went out on the internet and just started looking for fonts within a genre at all, okay? Because here's the thing, what you're going to need to do for this assignment. Why am I putting a whole bunch of typefaces on a page?
Comparison purposes.
Okay, so comparison purposes, yes. So would I use Ringo Knights in my logo?
No.
Maybe not.
Absolutely not. Okay, so this is a typeface right there that, remember when I said, don't let your typeface design your logo for you? That is a victim of circus pants right there, right? Where that is a typeface that will possibly design your logo for you. As well, it does not, because what we're going to talk about here in a second, why don't we talk about it right now? Choosing a typeface. Because what you are basically going to be doing then is, with these typefaces or fonts, you are going to be looking at these, and this is what I like about having things printed, is having printed pages that you can look at. For some reason, when they're on the screen, I feel a little bit like there's, I don't know, there's some kind of in-between that I don't connect with a lot of times. But if it is on paper on my desk, I can connect with it a little bit more. And I can start to feel, what does the font, typeface, Ringo Knights communicate to me?
Sucks.
First and foremost, it sucks. True. Who said it? Was that you? Yeah. Okay. What is it trying to communicate?
It's very Western.
It's very Western. Why did I go for country Western fonts?
Country album.
Right. For the Gringo All-Stars. Did anybody, you guys saw me type in the Gringo All-Stars, right? So if I was doing a country album for the Gringo All-Stars, right? I would be looking for typefaces that said white trash country, right? You can't get any better than Gringo All-Stars for white trash country, right? I know, I'm probably not being PC, but so this was an album cover for a company called Real World that does jingles for radio stations or cuts for radio stations. You know, like Cube 93, you know what I'm talking about, those kinds of things. So they do those for radio stations. And this was their country jingles package that they were sending out as a CD as a promotional item to real live country radio stations. So yes, you're thinking to yourself, how the hell did that get approved? Right? Anybody? Well, I pitched it to them and they loved it. This was a photo that I took of an Airstream trailer somewhere in Arizona that was for sale. And I was like, oh, wow, check that thing out. I took a black and white photo of it, and I pitched this as a design to them. They loved it. They sent it out, and they're still a business that's in business, so I'm guessing it didn't hurt them too much, right? But one way, shape, or form, genre. Okay, so this typeface falls into the, well, we need a typeface for genre purposes, okay? So country western can be a genre, rock can be a genre, World War I can be a genre, the Roaring Twenties can be a genre. So the definition of genre, people may have different definitions of genre, but in this class, the definition can mean a great number of things. Some way, shape, or form, it's a period of time, it's a social group, it's a whatever kind of a group that revolves around something, right? So a pretty loose definition, right? So rock is a genre, country is a genre, the Roaring Twenties, World War I, right? Not that there would be World War I bands that you'd be doing CD covers for, but there are posts. Has anybody ever looked at World War I or World War II posters, poster art, right?
You can do it.
Yeah, you can totally geek out on that stuff. So there are, you know, psychedelia was a genre. So if we then want to talk about choosing a typeface, there are going to be very solid reasons, let's say, principles. Readability, readability, readability. Now, when we are choosing a typeface for readability, what is the function? Yeah, we read it. But where do we see that function at play?
On the website.
Do we care if this is readable?
Yeah.
Okay. We care more that this is legible than readable. Okay. We'll talk more. In other words, I can make out that word and I can make out that word. But is this typeface, if I put this in a paragraph, right? In other words, story time with Mike Sinkula. I was doing a term paper or a report on a book that was set in old-timey kings and queens, England. So I shit you not, I turned it in this typeface. This was before I studied graphic design, mind you. If you had a Mac back in the late 80s or early 90s, you had this typeface or font on your computer. So I was used to getting A's on everything I wrote, right? I was a smart kid. I wrote well and got good grades. I turned in a term paper or a 5 to 10 page paper, all written out in London in paragraphs. Yeah, you're laughing because you know exactly what grade did I get?
Didn't pass.
I got a shitty grade for me. I got a B minus. And I was like, oh my God, B minus? Are you kidding me? And it wasn't until years later, I think until I was actually teaching this class, that I had the flashback of, oh,
Letters are good for just the capitalization of a
right.
paragraph.
So for a headline, for a genre brand, right, that would be great. Readability? No way, man. Because he was probably struggling to get through the paper and halfway through the paper hated me, right? So, readability. So this is where classic typefaces like century-old style Times, Palatino, so on and so forth. Typefaces that have serifs, the little kind of, people sometimes say hands and feet, the little flourishes at the end. So back in the printed world, these little flourishes at the end of letters helped us distinguish from one letter to the next, which helped in readability. Now that we are on a screen, it depends on now with the new Retina displays that are however 11 billion pixels an inch or whatever they are. But if we have to render something at 72 pixels per inch on the screen, those little flourishes are going to get fuzzy and decrease readability, right? Look at you, you've already taken off your glasses that are straining your eyes because of it, right? So, so that's why sans serif, blockier typefaces, have been more predominant in the web world. Another would be emphasis, right? Or emphasis. Anybody watch Rachel Maddow? Anybody know who Rachel Maddow is? Emphasis on the wrong syllable. Why is this bold?
Want it to stand out.
I wanted to emphasize it for visual punctuation. See how I did that? Moving on. Display. So this is where we are transitioning from emphasis more into genre-esque, right? But we're still not so super quirky that, in other words, if you are doing a logo for a Mexican restaurant, do not do the logo in fajita. Has anybody ever seen that font? Let's see if I can find it. Well, let's just say, yeah, there it is. So, a typeface does not a Mexican restaurant logo make, right? Matter of fact, it might be relatively offensive, okay? So it is a careful balance of not being so tone deaf that you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna use this and type out a word and it's a Mexican restaurant, woo, pay me, right? But typefaces like this are starting to get into the genre aspect. Okay, so for instance, Adobe Lithos. What does this look like to you? Greek. Franklin Gothic. '90s Microsoft. AFT Cooper.
60s, 70s, 60s.
Okay. The Black Keys album. That is called, this is the Black Key. This is an album by the Black Keys, and its name is whatever that name is, right? Also, since somebody pointed this out to me, nope, that's not it. Let's just go images. Well, there it is. It is the typeface or font for Garfield. Okay, so if you choose this, I may think to myself, Black Keys and Garfield, or old retro posters. You've seen that in a lot of 70s, 80s posters, right?
The t-shirts.
Yeah. Okay.
Vote for Pedro.
Vote for Pedro. Is that vote for? That is vote for Pedro, isn't it? It's close enough. Okay. So then comes decoration, which again still is under the genre. Okay. But here is where we're going so hardcore into the genre that it's almost laughable. Okay. Like Ringo, whatever I had up there. But this, Adobe Rosewood, this says to me, I really want to be an alt country star.
It's also really popular at tattoo parlors.
Yeah. Okay. So using that does not a logo make. Again, these are the typefaces that I would steer away from. Now, I've seen one person in this class use a typeface like that effectively. So what I just did, let's close some of these. Oh, let's close. Today, why is Tatiana not here? Because she's working on the logos.
Maybe.
So remember when I said, hey, who wants to go look through all the old logos and crop them to such and such size? Remember when I said that? Tatiana did that. So I have now reformatted my gallery here. Where's AJ's? Did I already pass it? AJ, there you go. So this right here is a font that goes into the decoration, the decorative, like with all the glyphs and the artwork in it. I cautioned him on using it, but he used it in such a way where I don't know, what do you guys think of this logo?
It seems like an inside joke in a way,
Why?
because it's using stuff that web developers would use on Adobe, let's say that.
Okay. So do you think it looks a little cliche and you look at it and wouldn't take it seriously?
I'm saying as a non-web developer, you might wonder what was going on.
Okay. When I look at this, I think architecture, right? So if this was a business card for an architect, I'd look at it and go, oh, well, he probably used a font, but whatever, right? It's still, to me, it works because he didn't let this design his whole typeface or his whole logo. He used that as a definite design decision placed into this logo appropriately. So I look at this logo and I have my reservations about this stuff right there, but it is the same, I believe it's the same typeface. It's a different version of that typeface. I may be mistaken, but overall it works together. But if he had written out AJ Hans all in this typeface, it would not work. Does that make sense?
It's not the same with the letter closing to yourself.
Yeah. So using something like stencil, right? If this is what you're going for, stencil, and especially if you carry it out like this with the texture, right? You've done a good piece of artwork. This looks like a really nice postery type website, right? However, if you use that typeface, you were pigeonholed into military, right? Or if you were an 80s child, the A-Team, B.A. Baracus, right? So that is where these typefaces really, really get into, you're really, right? So be careful of that. So we're running out of time, so let me say one last thing and then we'll pick up the Illustrator Suitcase stuff a little bit more on Wednesday, and hopefully that stuff will get working. Another reason is color and contrast. So if you are using black text over a white background, using a regular typeface, regular weight, right, non-bold, is fine. If you take that same weighted typeface and make it white over black, look how the black encroaches in on the letter forms, okay? So if you have a too lightweight of a typeface, the black will encroach and you won't be able to read. If it is for a logo, right, make sure that it doesn't encroach. This is one of the reasons why you don't see white text on a black background on the web much anymore, right? Because of the readability aspect of it. Okay, so again, come Wednesday, we'll do a little bit more in Illustrator and Suitcase, and I'll see if the fonts are working or not. And we'll just go from there and play it on the fly. Let me stop my recording because I'm still recording. Hodor!